We got a an interesting one. This will be a long video. I feel like this is gonna end up being like twice the length of this dude's video. I've been meaning this for a while. People have requested it, primarily the crazy guy himself, Kenmano, to do a reaction and response on Nux Taku's video. No one understands fairy tale. I've been meaning to do it for a while, or at least to watch it. I mean, it's like an hour long, and I feel like I'm gonna end up having to take a lot of pauses, not just from like the fact that it's gonna be it's gonna be commentary, but I know I'm gonna end up either agreeing with him or disagreeing him, and any of the disagreements are gonna be probably pretty heavy, but we'll see. So let's start this. I haven't watched this before, so let's just go in it blind. Okay, I was just testing it real quick.
There is almost always, without fail, one of two points of view that the discusser is trying to get across.
It's usually people who haven't read the series and kind of just want internet clout, or people who read it and then that splits into people who actually read it and paid attention, and then those who didn't pay attention and complained because they missed things. Just quick jab real quick in before we go. But anyway.
A, fairy tale is a bad anime and I hate it. And B, fairy tale is a bad anime and I love it anyway.
I definitely don't think it's bad, but go on, I guess. No, I've never actually seen his full avatar. Pretty cool.
Everyone seems to say fairy tale is a bad anime. The fairy tale fans will die for it, the haters will hate indiscriminately, and
I mean, it's mostly people who just want to hate on it for clout. I mean, most of them, if you ask them reasons why they hate it, it'll be very incorrect. I remember most of them though. They'll pull out something like I remember someone saying something about like Gray dying to beat Zeref was like really like, oh, it made no sense. Like, how do they beat the end villain like that? And I was just like, paying attention. Anybody who also says that it's over, I mean, clearly you're not paying attention. Like, I can't believe that it ending like that. I mean, it didn't end, but go on, I guess. Anyway.
people that are semi-neutral towards it will edge on the side of caution and say, oh yeah, it's garbage, so that they're not insulted per se. Being that, if you're looking to nitpick points of fairy tale, you will succeed. As far as YouTube goes, I have yet to see.
I just want to point out of those, that King of Lightning one is so bad. I mean, he stopped reading like near the end of the Grand Magic games and then comes back like 200 chapters later with no context, not understanding of what went on, and then just pretty much made a hate video just to ride the hate train. Completely ridiculous. Just wanted to jump in there.
Anyone actually really praise fairy tale. I've never seen someone double down on praising fairy tale. The majority of people don't talk about it, and the people that do just absolutely demolish it as much as they can. Looking at you, Joey the anime man. I've praised fairy tale in the past because there are many things I believe it does very well, and I've gotten YouTubers DM me privately on Twitter saying, yo dude, don't give fairy tale a platform. Don't actually be a voice of reason defending it.
Imagine being somebody so butthurt about a series that they probably don't pay attention to, that they want to talk to, like they want to try and convince people not to make videos about it. Like, Jesus Christ, man. It's so ridiculous. They can't imagine people like that.
You want it destroyed, it's garbage. I'm obviously not going to tell you who that is, because it may be taken poorly, even though I personally found it hilarious. But my point stands. Everyone blasts fairy tale. This video is not taking either of the approaches. I'm not saying fairy tale is a bad anime and I hate it. I'm not saying fairy tale is a bad anime and I love it. I'm saying fairy tale is a great anime. I love it, and this is why it's amazing.
Okay, it looks like we're at least gonna start good. We're gonna start good. I'm gonna agree with him. Let's see where things go. I'm hoping to go smoothly. I'll pause on any points I think that he makes really well, and anything that he misses. The only thing that I know going into this, from what people told me, is he only watched the anime and he doesn't read the manga. So I'm curious to know about like certain scenes that were added into the anime, like his takes on that, as well as like anything that he might not know that we know because 100 Years Quest. I actually don't know when this video came out. Really quick. 1 second. I'm just gonna pull up another tag just because I didn't look at the the date on it at all. One second. There we go. 7 months ago. Okay, I was just wondering if it was before or after when 100 Years Quest came out, and we're like almost we're like what, like 2 years in, I think. Yeah. Anyway, like, God, I gotta pause it.
It has a huge following. People cried dozens of times watching it. There is something to it, whether you like it or not. Today, the ultimate fairy tale defensive analysis video telling you why fairy tale is amazing and no one apparently understands fairy tale.
And that is until I do my crazy video. Eventually, I'll do some thick ass video like this. I definitely got to get a cooler, or at least a more updated avatar before that. I mean, it's cool.
Now, fairy tale is like 330 episodes long, so I'm not going to be going through every individual scene saying, this is secretly why this was awesome, even though it looked like an ass pull. Not only will I not do that, but I cannot do that. If you want to criticize fairy tale for an overly abundant amount of fan service, or
I can't imagine people hating on fan service just because it exists. Mainly because of the one that always confuses me is like people only get mad if it's girls. Like, but you have Gray shirtless at almost every scene, and no one seems to complain. Yeah, like the people who are into like anybody who likes to see shirtless Gray, they know that they enjoy it and they don't complain. But then they see like, I can't believe these girls are wearing tube tops or bikinis in this scene. It's just like, man, let people have what they like. I mean, as long as it's not deterring away from the plot, like, who cares?
perhaps stupid plot armor.
Nope, I got to do a video on this one eventually, but all I'll say beforehand, because I know where this scene alone bothers me. I'm going to go into further detail in a different video, but it was not, I'll just TLDR, it wasn't never said that it was impossible for them to eat, like, elements outside their own. They're not supposed to. It's absolutely dangerous for them. We know that, and Natsu took a big risk, and afterwards, like, he managed to get what he needed from it, but it suffered a lot after. It was like days that he had like horrible like narcolepsy issues. He just passed out. It definitely wasn't some, oh yeah, I just kind of am stronger, and then at the end of it, nothing happened. He got sick from it. Like, for real. Anyway, let me get back to it. I'll do a long video on that. The fact this one, I've been thinking about this a lot because I want to do a lot of videos on it anyway.
Certain areas, or some annoying arc conclusions. All the power to you. There is reason to criticize fairy tale very much. What it does right, though, in my
Man, I love that fight so much. Jalal Natsu is such a good fight. I love a lot of the dialogue too.
low-key, it doesn't even matter anymore. This is the only really defensive fairy tale video on YouTube. Actually, really praised.
We're gonna see Abyss break one day.
Well, but for what I think it mastered like no other anime ever has. So, while I can recognize its flaws and can fully accept why someone would dislike the series,
I mean, any series is gonna have flaws, and especially like any series really big, like when you have hundreds of chapters that the author like did on a weekly basis, there's definitely gonna be, you know, hiccups and so. I'm not gonna deny like the fact that any of these series are gonna have some scuff marks in there. I just don't think that it's as frequent as people make it out to be.
due to what I consider the superficial nature of the show, at least give this video a chance.
Oh, I love that scene too. That was so awesome when the coin hits.
Absolutely worthless and volatile. If anyone really loves this show, then for that individual,
They dragged out that scene in the anime so much in Grand Magic Games.
is subjective. You cannot take it away from that individual who really fell in love here. Fairy Tail is not my favorite anime of all.
Ivan is definitely, if you want to bring up a disappointing character, Ivan and Raventail is definitely it. 100%.
Everything in this series, this one very important detail that I believe people semi-understand but don't really understand the scope or breadth.
Let's see, and I'll give my opinion on it.
Very amazing scene, really amazing, and this is what really connects you to the entire series. Yes, some background is
Come on.
required, and this will probably be a very long video. I mean, this is YouTube's masterwork on Fairy Tail, since for some reason everyone else is scared to talk about it. The only two videos I
Not me. I was talking about more than a year ago. I mean, I guess that was a much smaller channel. I'm in a small channel now. Anyway.
on YouTube semi-praising Fairy Tail was Evanito saying, I love Fairy Tail, even though it's terrible, which again does not help your case here, bro. And the Cartoon Ciphers, who said why I'll never stop loving Fairy Tail and explained it from a personal perspective. And low-key, that video is actually really beautiful. But by the narrative that fairy tale itself is not good, it just came at a time of my life where I liked it. I will link both of those videos in the description, as well as the anime man's absolutely bashing fairy tale.
Man, that part with Gray and Silver, that shit hurt. That whole scene.
Hope very much to dispel by the end of this video.
Oh, thank Christ. That I'll give this dude points alone if he, you know, going at the whole One Piece is or Fairy Tail is a copy of One Piece. There's so many differentiating points and just the way that a lot of the characters interact and behave and how much where they kind of tie into the story, and especially their relevancy. Oh my god. Anyway, you'll keep going. I don't want to end up completely rambling about the differences between One Piece and Fairy Tail. Okay. Is he gonna say the segments beforehand? Is what I wonder.
First and foremost, we have to talk about the protagonist of fairy tale.
Natsu Dragneel, the goat.
Nearly every single shonen story focuses on a central protagonist to carry the story forward.
Yeah.
Pictures of said protagonist
You're seeing it from their perspective, so it understands. That's why they're the big guy.
alongside them, growing as the protagonist.
Oh, look at that. Look at that boy right there. Look at that young goat right there. Austin there. Hell yeah. Get to see one of my other goats in the video.
They believe in finally discovering themselves, us viewers,
Man, the Vito fight was awesome too.
along the way. The shonen
I love that fight. Still gives me chills the way both in the anime and the manga.
is fascinating. It's a character that I feel like is almost impossible to truly get right, and can never really be the favorite character of said series. Not necessarily to
I think Natsu won the last, like, I think Natsu won the most recent popularity poll,
However,
which is good.
simple example, if the protagonist
Not always.
3,000 votes and the second place only gets 2,000 votes, that means the protagonist won by a landslide. But at the same time, the support
Okay.
is far more
I know Lucy has also won first place before in some of the polls.
support member. If you add the total votes of all the support members, they far surpass the votes for the protagonist himself. So the protagonist needs to take some form of generic role in order to push the story forward. A very nuanced
Like
character
what?
that never really
Let's go.
interacts with the broader audience, or be a character that can actually play off other characters in any given scenario.
God, Usopp's nose. Like, that poor... I can't imagine having that shit broken like that.
I'm not gonna go through my personal hot takes of every shonen protagonist right now. That's kind of not what I'm doing. But I mentioned that because
Back when Chopper was relevant.
character, and
Look at that goat right there.
fill the role of a protagonist. Your generic shonen protagonist is not someone like Natsu in the
Well, one of the things, just in response to that, Hiramashima, like Natsu is I'd say he's definitely the main character. A lot of the big stuff is like around him. But one of the things Hiramashima has always done that I think goes really well with that tone of not having the main character so spotlight focused, which I get because they're the main character, is he always has the female leads be a lot more kind of active in the story. And Ellie was kind of like in a rough prototype spot for that. She was like in a weird in between spot between like how frequent Lucy like is important, and then like I don't want to say Sakura, but Sakura had some parts, but you know what I mean. She had like an in between spot, whereas like Lucy, and then even now with Eden Zero, Rebecca, you can easily look at those series and speculate like is the main character actually the main character? Like, it's the fact that a lot of people think that Lucy's the main character, I think is a really interesting result of the way that Hiramashima writes the story, and the way that he, even though Natsu's the main character and he's got a lot of big stuff around him, like all this stuff with Zeref and Igneal and whatnot, Lucy still ends up having some pretty important stuff around her too, and a lot of the ways that she ends up being relevant and doing things in the story is like the primary opposite of Natsu at the same time. Like especially out of the crew, like even out of the main cast, the way that they benefit the most in their roles. Like Natsu is a straight head on target, straight in the fight, brawler kind of character. He is a tank, heavy hitting, just he's a borderline berserker. Whereas Lucy, like, she's powerful, but she's always more focused on the fact that she's very intelligent, and her power is, her keys are more on the variety and the way that she can kind of utilize them for different situations. And So I think that Irishima has done a really good job at just balancing that to the point where people aren't sure if Natsu is actually the main character sometimes or not. But anyway.
Granted, Natsu has the most important role. If you had
Well, yeah, of course.
actual character from fairy tale, I guess Natsu's the most important. I mean,
That was such a touching scene.
baddies at the end of all the arcs, but at the
Oh, Blue Note.
very much not like your average shonen protagonist.
Man, that scene looked good in the anime.
Meant to take the lead role, we never want to polarize our audience. We want to respect him to some degree. That's why if
Luffy gets a little bit too much. At least lately.
all of them have generic powers. Asta has anti-magic.
I don't know about generic. I personally, I've always looked at it more of when it comes to the main character, you got to have something a little extra flashy and stand out. Like it's something that automatically, like upon hearing it, like you really wanna just take a look at it. It just has a cool thing. I mean, like Asta's in general, like anti-magic, like swords is a really cool like setup for a character in a world of magic. The fact that he's an anti-mage in this world. I mean, even in Luffy, I always liked Luffy. The fact that he, his power always like it started out really bad, and he found out a way to, utilize it in a lot of various ways for his fighting style. I mean, and then like Natsu's, I like the straightforward way that it both is unique and yet fits so well into like a fantasy magic series. But at the same time, I think dragon slaying magic is, in general, just really fucking cool. So let's move on.
Some elemental magic. Deku, super strong.
Well, that's because he's a superhero.
Which is essentially a really powerful melee
I mean, Naruto doesn't. Naruto's just wind stuff. Yeah, I forgot he's got the wind trait.
element. They always have well-rounded, non-niche powers, and almost never actually have an element. Natsu uses fire.
I mean, attribute. If you want to say direct element, sure. I'm trying to think of just people directly and off the top of my head. I guess not really. Like Zatch or Gash. Zatch Bell, Gash Bell. I mean, he's got lightning. I'm just thinking of some people off the top of my head. It's actually a lot of like Shonen Jump. Because then you look over at like other series that are like pretty big. Like Shinra also uses fire. I already said Zatch. Meliodas actually. Oh no, he uses darkness. That counts. Like darkness is part of his whole thing. I don't know. I never really thought about it though in terms of like the characters not really having a set attribute for a lot of them. That's actually kind of interesting. I never really thought about it in comparison to other series of their powers outside of more of their fighting style. So I think that's actually kind of an interesting take that he's got, just in general on that one.
That is a polarizing element. Maybe people
Yeah, fire's awesome.
lightning better. And the reason why I mention all
Yeah, and Fairy Tail's got goats for all three of those elements.
this is because Natsu does
Look at that fucking brute. Well, yeah, lightning, fire, but at the same time for that boy, but still.
to fairy tale. Lucy is not the protagonist of fairy tale either. Generic
No.
They win the big fights at the end of the arcs. They're somehow related to the big main bad guy.
Natsu kind of. I mean, he's definitely taken down a good amount of his opponents at the end. Not always, but I mean, like Mard Gear, like Josa and stuff. But that one definitely. Natsu's definitely related to some big people. I mean, he's definitely the brother of Zeref, so I don't know where he's going with that one.
Or something. And well, for the most part in shonen anime, they're dudes. Neither Natsu nor Lucy fit the bill even slightly for a protagonist, and that's because
I mean,
fairy tale.
Lucy's was related to Anna, and Anna, I mean, she was still like directly involved with the Dragon Slayer plan. I don't agree with this one because like being related to Zeref and Anna were pretty big characters that were like directly in the starting plot. Like it's something that kicked a majority of the series altogether. I mean, really, you subtract Anna and Zeref, and all you really have is Actinologia going around slaughtering people and bringing the world to like the apocalypse.
Is the Guild fairy tale? I've said this before, and I think that wrapping your head around this point is the single most important thing to understand about the series.
I gotta pause again. I can see where he's going for in that regard because that is one thing that I really like about Fairy Tail. It does a really good job at making the characters like their relationships and the way that they interact with each other feel very genuine. And the fact that a lot of them grew up together, and I think it adds an extra tone to it. that when you see characters fight, it's like, oh yeah, they've been like this for a long time. They've got a past, they've got beef and scuffles, or then maybe some like characters oddly get along, and just seeing how like their lives are essentially kind of brought to this point thanks to the guild. Like it's not just that they've come together and it's like, oh yeah, we've done this. It's more of like how the style that the guild has really crafted for them. And it's because of like their more family style like setup that they prosper so well, and especially the fact that magic in the series really stems from your like emotion, that the way that the people are treated and the way that the people like treat each other really like digs deeper towards like the root source of like magic in the series itself, which is really cool. The fact that they can tie back to even the origins of like how things in the series kind of all kind of just stem from. And on top of that, I do really like the way that they can still keep characters relevant. That's one thing that I've never been like a huge fan of when it comes to like a lot of long running series. And I don't mean it insultingly, but like One Piece, Dragon Ball, somewhat in Bleach, Naruto, like a lot of big series. The characters, like a lot of the characters outside of like the main character and like usually like the rival, end up not having like a lot of real relevancy near the end. And then like look at now, even in like 100 Years Quest, everybody in the main cast still is really relevant. All of them have their own skills and utilities and are still able to progress and evolve and keep up with the events of the story. It's not just Natsu going in there and doing things. Like everybody has their own role and their own abilities that they bring to the team. And even in like the most recent 100 Years Quest chapter, like characters that would otherwise be seen as like fodder and not really capable of doing anything in a situation were able to be relevant. And then like the stuff with Max and like training under Agio was just a way that you were able to tie events from the story together for a character who has been here from the the start, and where he's got to come from and where he's able to kind of just been trying to keep up. It makes it a lot more heartwarming when you see these guys are still trying to do things even though they know that they can't hold a candle to the main cast, but they still want to be able to do everything they can because they see it more of as like a family and not like if you're playing Pokemon and it's like the level 20 goes out and it's like, what am I gonna do? Like this is like a level 70 guy. I guess then one of the big guys. And all I'm gonna do is be there for you to use a max revive or full restore to get the other guy out. They're like, no, we need to figure out how I can be beneficial and what I can do to help the team. That's one of the things I've always really liked about Fairy Tail, and I can see where he's coming from in saying that the guild itself is kind of like the main character, which is an interesting take. I can see where he's saying it. I see it more of the, if I had to say it wasn't really just Natsu and Lucy sharing kind of like a main character role, I think it's a lot of the main cast, like the Natsu, Lucy, Wendy, Erza, and Gray, and then Happy and Carla to a degree. Just by the way that their stories are still really wrapping around everything that's going on, because usually when you're this far in, like characters' backgrounds and like their stories and their tales are generally over, and it's just like, okay, what bad guy are we dealing with now, and what reason are we dealing with them? I mean, like look at like right now, Natsu's worried about his strength growing beyond his control, but also he knows that he needs to do something about Ignia, because he is Ignial's son, and he knows that by proxy he thinks he's responsible for it. Lucy's whole thing of like being frightened by Natsu's fire for the first time and like all the worrying she's been doing with him. Erza's progress with Jalal. Gray having like the last thing after admitting his feelings for Juvia and wanting to be strong enough to protect her. Wendy's stuff with Irene. Like it's really interesting the way that Hiramashima has always been able to keep characters steadily involved in the story instead of, yeah, the Natsu's doing stuff, we're kind of just along for the ride, and we'll fight some fodder guy that doesn't matter, and it doesn't really mean anything if we, win or lose, because he'll just come in and one-shot him kind of situation. And I get why people might not like that take, but that's just my personal opinion. I always dislike it when characters kind of fall out of relevancy, and they're just kind of almost more like props. Anyway, let's continue. I've been rambling for a few minutes.
You're not following Natsu's journey to find his
Yeah, exactly.
You're following Lucy's journey to actually become a wizard she can be proud of herself for. You are following
Yep.
the evolution of this guild fairy tale.
Yep. The characters, it's more about them as people experiencing the story.
As the protagonist's individual character finds his identity, you find yourself while the guild fairy tale finds its identity. Now, here's where the knockoff One Piece insults come in.
All right, let's see where this goes. Let's see what he brings in. Some of the ones he brings in.
Copies from One Piece, and I mean, Guildarts is literally knockoff Shanks.
I don't agree with this one. There's differences. The reasons I think that primarily people obviously go for, like the fact that Shanks does, he's got one arm. I mean, the fact that he's also got a metal arm to make up for it, but people overlook the fact that he's also missing a leg, and I don't know. It's always been weird. Like, if they've got some trait, what about this other trait? I mean, why is the fact that does Guildarts use a sword? I mean, their fighting styles aren't similar. Also, I think that Shanks didn't have that model. I'd have to look at the time that. I'd have to go and find the chapter that he had in that one, and he kind of like when he went with the slicked back hair, and then he got way more jacked. But one thing just to note is the anime doesn't have Guildarts' hair right. I just always that's one of the things that people always say. It's not supposed to be like that kind of reddish color. It's supposed to be like a darker brown, which is one of the hints that he was Kana's father. That's just always one thing that is always bugged me, because one of the reasons that people relate it to is the fact that he has a similar hair color, but that hair color is wrong. I don't know. And I mean, in just also in their roles in the story, like their personalities, like what exactly is their tale? I mean, like, look at them. Like, Guildarts is, we don't even really know Guildarts' backstory. We just know what he's like, and like how his personality is, and how the other characters like look up to him, and how they kind of like see him like as an idol-like character. Whereas, like, Shanks has, like, this story directly tied into Roger, and, like, giving Luffy his hat, and where that kind of originated from, passing down that hat from, like, where it was with Roger, and then whoever gave it to Roger. There's people that only are going for like, very specific surface traits, which is kind of silly. But then when you have a character like Idio look almost exactly like Bacchus, they want to ignore it. Just saying. Anyway. Let's just go forward more. Thank you. Love Guildarts.
The Straw Hat Pirates in One Piece are by no means the single protagonist of the series. Luffy is clearly the protagonist of
Yeah, definitely, especially now. Like, a lot of the characters, a lot of the Straw Hats don't really do a whole lot now. But I know, whatever. Oh, Tempesta. Yeah, theirs is a crew, and theirs is more of like how they benefit the crew. Whereas like the guild itself, they're trying to bring people in that they think need a home, and wayward people. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like, look at like Gajil, like Makarov. I'm gonna pause it real quick. Just like kind of like how the way that's set up is really true, because like the Straw Hat crew, it is what Luffy wants. Like, Luffy brings them in because of like if he likes them, and then like he finds them interesting, or like they like thinks that they'll benefit the crew in his journey to become Pirate King. Where I mean, not entirely. I know like he's got more than that, just reasons, a lot more personal ones. But I mean, like, look at, for instance, I think just Makarov when he went to go get Gajil, I think is a really important one to really look at, and like the difference between their groups is, even though Makarov came to offer Gajil a place within the guild, he still was upset about him for like what him and Phantom Lord did. But he said that he would be more upset with himself if he turned like he turned his eye to like a youth that was troubled and in need. Like, he went to him because he's like helping people that need it, bringing in wayward and lonely people into the guild so they can have a family and have people that actually like care and support them, is like the very core thing about Fairy Tail. Like the fact that they are a family, they are like a very synergistic group. It's one of the reasons I'm hoping Nebel joins. You gotta apply, but they'll probably let anybody in as long as they like, as long as they're like good people. Yeah, they got a lot of like, they got a really good vibe environment. I'm like a half hour into the recording and like 10 minutes into this video. I hope I don't pause it too much, or this is like 3 hours. Yeah, you're experiencing more about their lives, and it's bringing out more about their individual experience and how it relates to what's going on. Hell yeah, Black Bull's GOAT. I don't know. I don't know about the Black Bull one. Black Bulls are awesome, and I think they have a very. I'm gonna have to pause it. Just as a, I'll be really quick on this. Definitely don't like agree with them entirely on the Black Bull one, because the Black Bulls have a very similar style as the Fairy Tail Guild. Not exactly, like Yami still picks people, but he picks people that are interesting, and the way that the Black Bulls treat their members is very similar to the Fairy Tail Guild. Like they're super ride or die, like kind of like mentality. They're just like, listen, if it means having to like turn on everybody and go rogue for the sake of, of the crew, we'll do it. Like they are absolutely like, yeah, we'll walk the line and be good, but if you guys cross us and make it difficult, we'll kind of like just turn on everybody for the sake of their of the squad. As a quick thing, just because I definitely think the Black Bulls do a really good job about that in Black Clover. I do. I do. Come on, man. He probably doesn't know anything about me. He's got like a big channel. Hey, yo, the homies. You like fun characters. Man, it'd be really weird seeing a little girl dressed like that. She was like what, 12 at the time. Oh, this is a weird episode. So surprised Josei never came back. Look at that boy. Alzak and Biska. They did. Hell yeah. Big sister Erza. Ha! Got him. Nah, there's some. Look at those fellas. I just as a side thing, I know it was important to like parts of the story. I wish that Mystogan never took off his mask. I loved how mysterious and kind of just ominous he was. I don't know. It's one of the only things I would change if I could in the series, is just kind of keep Mystogan always masked. Man, could you imagine if like he was the guild master during the 7-year time skip and like the sole guy keeping Fairy Tail like afloat? That'd be awesome, actually, thinking about it, because it'd be like the Wanderer guy comes back for the sake of the guild. That'd be cool as fuck, man. Kinda got messed up in that fight, poor girl. Yep. There's a reason. Oh, she can take her alcohol though. Mira James is the fact that she's like super BDSM, like crazy sadist girl. She just hides it well.
Because they're also part of this weird, wacky, quirky family. As are you. Natsu and Gray are always fighting, so of course Master Makarov always sends them on missions together. Duh! That's the absolute logical thing to do. So many of them joined the guild as orphans.
That's such an interesting scene at the start. Just when you go fresh into the series, and like the first thing you get with the crew is like they're gonna brawl with each other. Yep. Which is really interesting because it was always interesting because Makarov always kind of like saw an issue with his failure to be a father to Ivan, but like the way that he treats the guild members too. That's one of the reasons I wish Ivan like was more relevant. Like I think that story would have been a little bit more interesting. Yeah, man, Mystogan was so cool at the start. That ominous like secret, like there's a member of the guild that you know he's there, but you don't even know what he looks like. Man, Mystogan is awesome. Man, it's weird to think that most people in the guild have seen Gray's dick too. You got a mask in your avatar, but I guess so do I. I don't know. I don't know. The anonymity is a little bit fun as long as you're not causing problems. I don't know. I try to be pretty genuine. Oh, he's talking more about like. I was thinking he's talking about like mask for real. He's talking about like personality mask, like hiding who you are. Yeah, that was a big thing in Alvarez when Natsu was starting to doubt himself, and that was causing the demon seed to grow. Some of those guys. I saw Miki Chicken Tiger. It's like one of the fodder ones that I just. It's such a weird name. I always remember. Hold on. Side note. Be nice to Max. Dude suffers a lot. He eats that broom. Dude somehow always ends up with a broom in his ass, like after every brawl. He's interesting though. Like I said, I've always really liked. I like his design, and I've always thought sand abilities were really cool. And the fact that he trained with Agil is awesome. I really like the fact that he connected 2 points of previous parts in the story together. I thought that was really cool. Anyway, why couldn't he take a jab at like Warren or Nab? Oh, Agil, awesome, man. Fuck yeah, crime source here. Oh yeah, say it with the chest. That's great. Oh shit! I've got my Streamlabs on. I'm gonna be subscribed. Let me close that right now. Let's see. Oh, it's pause it. I move it over because I clicked out. That scene was awesome. Just wanted as a small note there. But I mean, I don't really know what Phantom Lord would have done with 50 like groups more of fodder. It's not like they would have done anything. They're lucky that like Guildarts or like Laxus wasn't there. Yeah, dude ran a train on him.
Mystogan, the mad lad, who's very busy by the way, wiped out 50 strongholds for the sake of his guild. He didn't get an ounce of credit.
I don't know what it is. I know that, like, Hiramashima has this weird thing going on with, like, Sieghart and Jalal and Mystogan and Justice. Like, every single character that ends up having that kind of, like, weird variant design of his original main character from back in Magician just ends up awesome. They're always, like, great in a series. I mean, we haven't got much of Justice yet, but still. Yeah, they're close. Hell yeah, there we go. Yeah, Natsu's own identity issues that he had going on. Let's see. I look at Yukino. Storm and Sabretooth. That was such a flex part. Which was really weird when you thought about it, because that was, at that point, Natsu hadn't really done anything for like 30, like around 30 chapters of no real fights, and that was like the closest thing you got until the fight with Sting and Rogue. Yeah, they're all about accepting each other for who they are, making a warm place for everybody. No discrimination, no hate, just acceptance, compassion. Good folk, man. Yeah, see, you know. The only ones they don't accept is if there's a danger to them. That's what's going on with the White Witch. We know that from Laxus. Oh, flexing on 1v2ing Sting and Rogue, such a flex too. Alright, let's talk about them. The villains I've done a lot of thought about. A lot of thoughts on. There's Blackbeard. Pain. Alright. Showing some real good villains in there. I mean, Natsu and Zeref definitely had a lot, like parallel views on things. Somewhat of Acnologians and Natsu as well. I gotta do a video on that at some point. Don't really care about Akainu, but I definitely like Blackbeard. I think Blackbeard's pretty cool. Dude's like the most pirate in One Piece. Stain's really cool too. Okay, come on. Nobody cares about Twigo. Jose was kind of like a fodder one. That seems kind of weird early on because like it makes it seem like Makarov's like mainly a light mage. Oh, Zeref. Come on, man. Oh, come on. There's so many aspects to like the differences between like how Natsu and Zeref kind of see things. Like the fact that Natsu, like from his teachings with Igneo, was always about living and moving forward, and how the parts about life and struggle, like they come together. Like hardships are part of the experience. And Zeref, on the other hand, was always looking for a way out. He was always looking like the Aetherius. He was trying to kill himself when he was trying to do the Eclipse plan. He was just trying to go back. He was trying to undo things. The way that he thought about it was, he was trying to make a better future in a way, but by doing so, he'd be undoing the lives of the people that are there right now. And Natsu is more concerned about, like, you're thinking about it from more of like a large like overview standpoint, and not from like the standpoint of like these people are still gritting their teeth and trying to live their lives, trying to move forward. And the way that like Natsu was really kind of like looking at it to as the experiences of the people, and like really the concept of what it is to live. versus Zeref, and how Zeref was really just trying to look for shortcuts, go back, undo things, fix things, make things kind of easier, and just undo all of those hardships, undo all of those struggles, undo the parts that Natsu really saw as the world, like the experience of it was a huge like contrasting point for him. And I'll do some more on like some of the parts with Acnologia. I think with Acnologia it was more of like how their paths were similar with Natsu and Acnologia, but more of like what in them is what made big factor points for their decisions. So let's keep going. Zeref's amazing. Zeref is a 10 out of 10 villain. I love Zeref's character. I gotta pause again. Well, actually, like the way that Zeref was really built, I think was beautifully done. And like the first 200 chapters or so, it's depicted more like he's this evil harbinger of the end, like embodiment of evil and darkness and some malefic force that, you know, once brought upon the world is going to bring some great change. When in reality, Zeref was this kind of tortured soul who was only trying to bring back his brother, ended up getting cursed in the process, and how his life was pretty much brought to further ruin when all he was doing was trying to bring back a member of his family. And like the I think one of the points that he talks about in his whole talk with Natsu, like after he kills Larkade, when he's like saying how the world, like he wasn't allowed to have a family, wasn't allowed to have anyone to care about, really kind of just is like the exact opposing position of the way that Natsu ended up with the guild, whereas Zeref couldn't end up with anybody because the curse would kill anybody that was around him, and the only way that he found out a way to cheat it was to look at people like pawns, like look at them more as like units in a game, not as individuals. Whereas that's what the Fairy Tail Guild does. They look at the people of who they are and accept them for who they are, and integrate them into their own structure of the guild itself, and what they can do for each other, and really how they can all just get along and like live life and adventure and just have experiences together. Anyway. Well, he lost his parents too. I mean, he didn't have a life's work beforehand. Like, he was a little kid when he went to Mildian. Like, he went to Mildian with Natsu already dead, and went into Living Magic and shit. Well, he went to Living Magic later. He went into like Resurrection, and then messing with when he invented the Eclipse Gate. Yep, Oxram. Not Oxtalam. Oxram, come on, translations. Which is another thing interesting, because Natsu is stronger the more he cares about somebody, and like he'll be able to protect them more because of it, whereas the more Zeref cares about something, the more he kills it. They're very mirrored in the way that they're structured in the series. Yeah, Zeref was a very tortured soul. Like, he did not want to be a villain at all. Oh, there's the Aetherius. I love Zeref. Marred Gear too. There's another one of my boys. Yeah, he just becomes a killing machine. He was trying. He hadn't gotten there yet. Sort of. He was trying to. He was studying like aspects about life and death, and then he like the way that he was doing it. It's because in the eyes of Ankh-Saram is he didn't value life. He didn't value the idea of life. Zeref thought of more of it like something he could cheat and overcome, which is interesting when you think about it, of how he was cursed in a way that Natsu kind of viewed things. Like Natsu's value for life and the experience, where Zeref was trying to cheat it. That's a small thing to put in there. Almost halfway, and I'm almost an hour into this, so Actually going good. I was worried it was going to be 3 hours.
The legendary black wizard Zeref, who descended from the most loving and passionate individual to the most terrifying, and he had no choice.
I love Zeref, man. Such a good story. He's got an amazing story.
Been done justice to this extent in creating a character to empathize with, as well as a perfect foil to the protagonist of fairy tale.
Yeah, he's
Because of his ties with
the way that Natsu is just like so opposed to Natsu's is fantastic.
quickly and briefly sum up what I said, put into a slightly different light. His core personality traits were caring for his family, willing to give his life for his family, being an empathetic, goodwill person who, despite the fact that people
Well, it seems like he's got this one. I think he got it too,
revive the dead,
which is good.
not care what
It's a very
wear a
it's definitely one of those traits about the story that you have to pay attention to and kind of like look at aspects about Zeref's tale and Natsu's to really see them. Like Zeref would be a member if it wasn't for his curse, which is interesting because he's one of the reasons why the guild was created.
of his control, it all gets utterly stripped away from him. It is the most tragic progression of his character as a perfect foil to the protagonist.
Yeah.
Guild of fairy tale. He's not an ideological adversary because it's not the ideology of fairy tale that makes the show go. It's not about the justice of the heroes in My Hero Academia or the adventures of the Straw Hats of One Piece. It's
Yeah, the guild is like fairy tale story is more of like the experience of like these characters, and like the story is obviously there, but it's more of like their experiences as they go. Like the story is important to it, but I think the characters and the way that they're going through it is more of the focus.
they are all very, very different. If you look at the mage
Kind of weird to say. I don't know.
because of the lack of care that
Oh,
his fight against
August.
absolutely amazing because
They did a lot of good job in the anime. They actually improved that anime a lot, or that fight in the anime a lot.
stand the bond between parent and child.
Yeah, August. Sorry. Ooh.
Everything for her
Super MILF Dragon.
her humanity, her dignity. She suffered tremendously for 400 years only for the sake of her family until eventually she snapped. So of course she fights her own daughter Erza, who before the fight starts says to her
Can't wait till Irene gets her new body.
after a long time searching, "Thank you."
I'm hoping she's got some throwdown like face off with Celine so much.
Never found
Two big like alpha female dragons.
from the Tenro Island
Ooh, look at that guy.
Heart Guild
Man, I love some of these characters so much. Like
took a turn
Hades was awesome.
villains in the tower.
Hades was one of those guys that deserves a freaking he deserves like a spin-off of like his journey after leaving the guild and just like forging Grimoire Heart. Like I want to see him in his prime and like, oh man, that'd be awesome.
And honestly, I do
It's not as much as the power of friendship. It's more about emotions because like I said, the magic in fairy tale. There's two theories, obviously, like that the magic came from like a darker emotions, and then there's like the part where magic came from more positive, lighter emotions like love. The fact that it's like the power system is tied directly to emotions, like there's always the fact like when a character's pissed off and they get like a rage mode, like you know that their power is just going insane, and you know they're getting revved up, maybe pulling out stuff from like deep within and whatnot. Obviously, like a good example, Naruto, anytime that he went into like his Nine Tails like modes in the early parts because he's like pulling out more chakra from Kurama. Fairy Tales is more of like the fact that like the origins of magic and where magic stems from entirely is from these emotions, and the fact they're able to tap more into them makes them more powerful. That's one of the things that was prevalent with Sting. Sting became a lot stronger when he was more honest with himself and more direct with his emotions. Like the fact that he didn't really see any reason to fight for friends. The only person he seemed to ever really kind of care for in reality was Lecter. And then after when he thought Lecter died, and he let like out a lot of these like he became way more emotional, and he had something more that he was fighting for. He became stronger in the process. And I always really liked the way that their magic system was structured in that, because like I said, there's always the fact that, you know, character can get pissed off and get like a rage mode and stuff, and it's always cool. It's always understandable. It's seen more of like, I think the easier way to kind of look at it is like if you put adrenaline kind of just like at tie on to their powers. But the fact that in Fairy Tail it actually is where the power stems from and where they originate and are powered from, it just makes a lot more sense to me. And I know, like, that power of friendship thing is always, like, it's something people bring up, but it's more about, like, it's not as much as, like, hey, I have friends, I'm stronger. It's more of, like, I have something that I'm actually fighting for. I'm not just in there for myself. I have something I'm defending or trying to protect or trying to bring honor towards or trying to, just in any way, you know, you bring out this power for them. It's not for you. I think it's always been really well done, and it's one of those things that I think a lot of people overlook and just kind of go with the whole power of friendship meme. But you know, whatever.
To a large extent, so no blame here. But the difference is between Power of Friendship and Fairy Tail and other plots in different series. Power of Friendship is the exact thematic counter to the villain that they are overpowering at any given time. Yes, the power scaling makes absolutely no sense.
No, it does. I just explained it. Come on. Hang on. Okay, just as a easy explanation here. The thing is, with the wizards, their bodies are dependent on magic. Magic is what makes them strong. Like, they need magic in order to survive. That's one of the reasons why magic deficiency can kill a wizard in Fairy Tail. You've essentially, like, taken out everything that their body needs to survive. It'd be like ripping out all the nutrients and water from somebody's body. Like, all their functions are going to start to cease. When it comes down to it, obviously, like, as long as they have magic, they can still fight. Erza still had a functional arm. She still had magic in order to put into it. She was still able to take on the offensive. It's not like something like One Piece, like Zoro. Zoro is pretty much like all physical strength. He doesn't have like a more of like something like magic or anything fueling him. He has physical strength. So when it comes to like something like broken limbs for him, it's more of a burden than something like that for Erza, because as long as Erza has the magic to fuel her attacks, she's still able to kind of like compete really in some of these things. Like, obviously, like, you can fight with broken limbs. I mean, Deku's like a good example of that, but it's completely different from like the idea of someone like, oh man, it's you know, this arm is broken, I can't draw out the full strength because of, you know, stuff to do with my muscles and whatnot. Ligaments are torn and everything. As long as there's magic to use for the attacks in Fairy Tail, they will still be able to put out the power, because their physical strength isn't what's being put into it a lot of the time. Even like Natsu, he's physically really strong, but that's because of his magic. And just also on a side note, like, that's what Urza's like. A meteor is literally just mass and like big. It's like just a big rock. It's just mass coming at something at a high speed. It's just kinetic energy, and you just have to put more straight kinetic energy into it. And really, that's what Urza's Benny Zakra sword and her clear heart armor do. They literally just increase attack and speed. They've done that throughout the series. That's always what they've done. Urza's always used it when that's the gap between her and her opponent, is that, you know, you are way faster than I am. I mean, look at something like Ikaruga. Look at someone like when she fought with Kagura. Look at someone when she was fighting Kyoka. That's always just been like the thing. I do think it gets a little bit overused, but you know, I don't agree with this point at all. Just because I can see where someone get confused, but you have to take the power account into it. Just in that factor. I mean, and also really in terms of like the power level, like setup, Erza, even though she was able to do it, it was impressive for her. It's still, for Irene, it wasn't like a huge deal, because even though it was still like very like astonishing that she could do this, she's like, even if you were able to, you know, Irene straight told her, like, even if you're able to like destroy that big ass meteor that came from like deep space that I just pulled in like the distance of planets away in the course of like 2 seconds, your sword isn't going to be strong enough to cut through dragon scales. Obviously, she needed Wendy's help for that. Like Dragon's physical strength is generally been shown to be their big boy. Like, they've got ranged attacks for the sake of ranged, but when it comes down to it, their physical strength is their you know, big asset. I just wanted to kind of put that in there, because that's always one of those ones that I can kind of understand that people would get messed up on. But anyway. Well, she gets buffed by Wendy, and then Again, not really. I mean, Irene got knocked out of her form. I never was a fan of that, the fact she got knocked out of her form shortly going into it. But she wasn't over. Like, she could still fight. If it wasn't for obviously the fact that she still had a piece of her that cared about her daughter, then she would have just cut off Erza's head right there. I mean, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't agree with the complaint about the power level, because Erza didn't win. Irene killed herself before her more insane side could take back over and kill her daughter. It definitely don't agree with that point. Just anyway, that not like a huge thing. It's a power level thing.
Head back to Zeref a little bit because he's my second favorite antagonist in the series, and you'll soon see who my favorite is. Zeref
Okay.
actually did manage to
I hope his favorite is Margear.
someone else who had this curse.
I could see it being Acnologia from what the anime added onto it. Like, the anime gave a lot more extra stuff for Acnologia.
Eventually meet Zeref, and they eventually fall in love.
I'm curious to know who his number one is.
Begin to care for one another. They can't kill each other. It's actually a finale for Zeref's century.
Curious. As long as it's not like future Rogue or Faust or someone.
When they finally hug and kiss.
I'd accept Zero if he just loved like batshit crazy like brawlers and crazy maniacal chaos men.
Can exist. He can have a bond.
Oh, this is so sad.
Within him is not completely snuffed out by
Aw.
his curse. His curse of contradiction overpowers hers, and he kills her. That is the last straw. A finale of Zeref's entire
It's when Zeref realized that he really can't have anybody.
is more than fitting. So even though a lot of hate is targeted at the fairy tale villains,
Oh, Zeref.
overly complicated ideology, and not usually
Look at Mavis.
overly creative ways
Such a happy girl.
within the narrative. Yes, it's annoying. Look, Natsu ate ether nano, so now he's stronger than Jalal, but his ether nano wears off, so he's back to where he started. I understand.
I mean, it's a temporary thing. That's how the Slayer like ability to eat their attribute does. It could give them temporary increases.
Really great. Fairy Tail actually accomplishes its thematic storyline in almost every single arc perfectly. So now forgive me.
Yeah, Fairy Tail's goat, man.
My favorite antagonist.
Okay, let's see who it is. I'm interested to see who it is.
He's amazing. I love him, and you will too.
It's gotta be. I feel like if it's not Zeref, it's gotta be Acnologia or Mardgear. It's gotta be.
Now, I am a big fan of fight scenes. I would say I'm a fight scene enthusiast, as most of us are. Most of us probably started watching anime for the fight scenes, and, well, Fairy Tail doesn't exactly do a good job with a lot. I try to look past
I don't agree.
choreography, even though choreography is very important.
I love the choreography in the fight scenes. Whatever, do your thing, man.
Good fight scene tells the story, and the way the fight starts, and the
Look at Raya. Look at that goat. Look at that badass fucking woman right there.
it's all a miniature story within the greater story of the
I wish he showed a scene from Yu-Gi-Oh! Just a duel and then these epic fights. I actually just side note, I love those fights anyway.
scene in anime. I recently uploaded my 800,000 subscriber special.
Oh, good for you.
Top 10 favorite fights in anime. Funnily
Oh,
enough,
Escanor.
them are actually cool animation and
Man, I miss when Estarossa was like that.
on there. Luffy versus Katakuri isn't a battle of strength, it's a battle of ideals.
Luffy versus the sticky boy with the lizard his mom.
Strength, it's a battle of their opposing psychologies on how each of them suffers in their own way. Lee versus Gaara is not amazing because of the cool choreography as much as it's amazing because of the overall theme of hard work versus natural talent. So now, as a kind of sub
Come on, let's go.
we'd have good fight scenes. Now let's talk about the fights of Fairy Tail.
Oh god, I feel like I'm gonna get a little triggered by this part.
As I've mentioned, every fight, at least with the good ones, needs to be a little encapsulated story of the overarching themes of whatever the hell is going on. So if
It's weird they changed the art or like the art theme for Irene Staff in the anime.
are shat on YouTube constantly,
Yeah, people don't pay attention is why. They completely just skip everything and don't look. It's just not as straightforward as hits guy really hard and wins.
Dragon Ball's not great, but everyone loves Dragon Ball fight scenes. There's another problem with Fairy Tail. The issue, or at least the so-called issue/problem, is the lack of impact in the fight's finale. As I've mentioned, when building up villains in Fairy Tail did a tremendously good job. Jalal being part of the slave camp, Zeref having the curse of contradiction, whatever the hell it may be. Villain build-up
Both of those had beautiful endings. I loved both of those endings so much for Zeref and Jalal. Both of those are so good.
This is a flaw that many people
I mean, I guess if you want to say Tempesta, sure, I guess, but Tempesta was never an important character.
underwhelming fashion. Natsu eats ether nano to defeat Jalal, loses ether nano powers for later. Natsu eats golden fire thingo to fight against Zero, lose.
Just as a small thing, like I said, that's just a trait of like how Slayer magic works, though. I mean, they can get a boost, and in certain cases, like with if you don't have a Lacrima and you eat the element of another Dragon Slayer who has a Lacrima, you get the hybrid form. But yeah, you're any like the eating an like power is an attribute. It's a trait of how the Slayer magic works. It's just a piece to it. I don't know. It'd be like complaining like anytime Naruto pulls out like more power from Kurama and like it's like he doesn't have it mastered. Yeah, but that's part of like the structure of like his power system. Like part of his abilities is is his the fact that Kurama is in his body. I don't know. It really depends on how it is. Like with like I said when it came to like Ethereon, the fact that it was made of multiple elements and it was fire included and it was more of just kind of like this weird raw magic. Natsu intaking it was really dangerous. It's it was the risk that he took, and it was more about his recklessness at that point. Whereas with Jalal, it was more of the acceptance and understanding that people can change and people can get better and be better. Because Natsu didn't seem to really care about like the idea of forgiving somebody at that point until we got to the point. That's why it's the flame of flame of rebuke at one point, and then I think in the official viz it's the flame of guilt. I had to go back and look, but you know what I mean. It had to like a specific meaning behind it. Though with I mean I can get the idea behind it, but if it's part of the power, I don't know. It's weird to complain about if it's something like built into the structure of how they work instead of just like somebody pops up. It's like here's a new power every time you fight somebody, or I got to take a shot at Meliodas, or if you just literally just pull out a new power every single time you need some form of upgrade. It's like I've always had it, but pull out a new sword or some shit.
Natsu eats Laxus's lightning against Hades isn't nearly as awesome with that lightning power later. It's all some
Yeah, because that's positive. Yeah, because that when he used it against when he was using it against Hades, it's because it was Laxus's supply. He had the Lightning Flame Dragon mode, but it was with Laxus's magic. So at that point, Natsu was fighting with the level of a wizard saint, like because like Jalal or not Jalal, Laxus was already around that level, and Natsu was literally taking the entirety of Laxus's magic that he had. Like he was hurt, so he's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna give you my magic. I think somebody from the guild should take him down. I'm gonna pick you." Natsu was literally taking that much magic and running through it like as aggressively as possible, and just drained all of it into like all these big attacks. Whereas like when he used it against Max, that was with his supply. And then as we saw later, when he actually like got second origin and became stronger, like he was able to put up like a much higher degree, closer to like what he had with closer to what he had like when he ate it with Laxus. That completely like weird to look over. When you're doing an analysis video. I don't know. Anyway, not an important like big thing, just something I wanted to note. I don't know why you're saying it with showing Sting and Rogue's parts, like when Second Origin was parts like permanent in his body. I mean, Natsu's strength up until the point of like the series starting was him fighting and training for years. And like him and Gajil were equal until Gajil ate metal to get his power back. So then Natsu did the same thing. He didn't do it all as well against. He didn't get any form of boost against Laxus either. He didn't do it against Faust. Like the power of like Lightning Flame Dragon mode wasn't even what beat Hades. It was a huge group thing. It was a huge group effort. Go on. Yeah, that's not Natsu's goals or anybody. Gray's sorta now, but just be stronger. So we believe he can protect Juvia to be able to protect Juvia to be with her. Yeah, no one ever really kind of like had that same kind of like setup for in Fairy Tail though. Wait, what? Hold on. Just say that the Black Bulls are a guild? Come on, man. Yeah, small thing, but like, come on, damn it. Let you go brigade or squad, but they're not a guild. They're like a branch of the military. Ooh. Yeah, don't bring in power levels. Power levels by numbers is usually goes really badly when you have power levels by numbers. It's probably way higher than that in the... I think Super Saiyan Blue was like 96 tillion or something silly. Look at that mouth. Didn't Goku forget how to go into Ultra Instinct? Didn't he also have like issue going into Super Saiyan God? After I don't remember that part. After I think he was fine with it. Definitely with Ultra Instinct. Like he couldn't just jump into it, so I kind of wrong on that one. But you also got to look at like certain parts. Like if they're situational, they're getting boosts from other characters. It's completely different than like if he just was strong by himself. Because like Natsu was still strong by himself at the start of the series. He didn't even really get a boost in reality until the fight with Jalal. Because the only reason he got one with Gajil is because Gajil did the same thing. So all he did was kind of even back the playing field. Didn't have it with Laxus, like I said. Didn't have it with Faust. The power up wasn't what won the fight against Hades. And I mean, like, look at with Margear. Like, he got Dragon Force, and then Natsu trained after unlocking it really for the first time by himself, and then he was able to use it by himself. Just saying. I mean, Natsu can use Dragon Force now. Like, he's been able to do it since the start of Alvarez. Like, after that. Come on, man. Let's see. I'm still waiting for his villain. It wasn't Ether Nano, it was Ethereon, but go on, man. Come on. Can't wait to do the video talking about that part. When I get to my reread and just kind of do explanation video on that. I'm hoping after that point it's that I can just like shut up that whole claim entirely. Yeah. Yeah, Natsu was trying to risk everything he had and to save her and fix her and put her back. Look at that punch. Look at that big Chad punch. Punching the color out of that guy. He used an aspect of Dragon Slayer, or even Slayer magic in general. I mean, intaking magic, but you know, well, not even magic, like their attribute. Ethereon it was a little bit of like a odd like differing point because it was made of fire to be like part of like into like a raw element or a raw magic. So Natsu intaking it was poisonous essentially to him. That's why he was vomiting and writhing on the ground in pain. But anyway, yeah, it was something that was more him utilizing an aspect of his power to overcome where he was at the time, but well, it was setting up stuff for later. I mean, again, like look at Naruto. Naruto, the same thing with well, not the same thing, a similar thing with his nine-tailed forms. That bind snake. It's gonna show the weird animal creature that's in like the crystal they have put in the anime. Waiting for it. Or is it? Look, you can slightly see it in the background. He's right behind the dude's head. That's not true. That's not true, but okay. That only wasn't the power of friendship, like the power of, I think you've murdered the woman that I care for and the woman I love. Like, that wasn't like, oh, you're mean to my friends. That mind lock right there, ice lock. With those caring people. Juvia was willing to risk it all. Yeah, she want to make blood. Ah, come on, man. What did I say? I just told you. It was more like the fact that Gray having like demon slaying, and the fact that demon slaying is both like a magic and a curse, where Gray was kind of like in the weird spot of like avenging, you know, the person he loved. So he was both at the source, like with magic, and like where curses stem from. So getting that double like boost onto his magic. Plus, Gray was already, like, really powerful at the start. Like, he was already considerably strong. It's not like he was Romeo there. It's like 800,000 troops. Big numbers. What? What do you mean plot reasons? You not pay attention. I swear to God, if he talks about power levels, I'm gonna be pissed. Ah, God damn it. Okay, just a small thing. Power scaling wise, definitely, it makes sense. Come on. I mean, like, just as like a small thing, like, Erza was already really powerful. She was already in that kind of like Spriggan area that Natsu and Gray were in. Gray and Natsu were definitely stronger than at this point. But the attacks that Natsu and Gray had been throwing at each other the entire fight and getting hit and like taking damage, Erza took more damage from one of those attacks than Natsu and Gray took entirely. Like, look at like her hands, and then look at like Natsu and Gray's level of damage after the fight. They were like, you know, they got like scuff marks and bruises and cuts. Erza's hands look fucked. They like her hand is like burnt, and you can see like areas like where the skin is black and just like it's all scorched on. And then her other hand is like frostbitten and cracking. Like, I definitely was never an issue with power levels. Erza, the fact that she was able to do it at all was fine. I mean, like just again, look at where she came out of that fight from one thing versus what they got in total. I just wanted to put that in there because I do agree. Like at that point, Natsu and Gray were stronger, but it's not like they were so strong that they would be able just to completely like just glare at Erza and she would die. No, she shouldn't.
No magic, just standing in between these ridiculously broken.
Where does she say she doesn't have magic?
He blocks them, and she's crying, and she snaps the hell.
Why would she not have magic?
Garbage was going through Natsu and Gray's mind at that time. That moment.
Again, that definitely wasn't garbage. Like Gray was infuriated. He thought E&D was part of the stuttering on myself. E&D was an aspect of what ruined his life. It was the creation of what ended up being, or what led to E&D that caused Deliora, who killed his family, and what led to the having to use Ice Shell in a way. Like obviously, Gray was very responsible for that, but a lot of that was based and rooted out of the creation of E&D, and as well as he was taking up his father's a whole death quest in taking E&D down. So it definitely wasn't garbage in Gray's head. Gray was definitely acting very much on emotion. Natsu was absolutely 100% going more off of Zetheria's side. He was not in control of himself. He was completely rooted at going after Zeref to kill Zeref and taking down anybody in his way that prevented him, because the Aetherius all have deeply coded into like their existence to get back to Zeref and kill him, to end his life, which is the entirety of their purpose is for Zeref's suicide. Natsu was even like the way he was talking, it was more of like a machine. He was more of like some trained animal, like moving to a target. Like, it definitely was not like some nonsensical part. I definitely didn't like that part. Like there's a lot here where I haven't agreed with him. I didn't like. I don't agree at any capacity to his take on that, because it was very built up for a while.
Power scaling wise, granted, absolutely trash.
Oh my god, come on, man.
From the audience at this time,
Should pay attention more to the power levels if you're gonna talk about them. Natsu and Gray didn't know. Okay, he was saying that was more of what resolved for them. And I thought for a second he was trying to say like, how could they be doing this while this is going on? I was gonna say, but he was right on that one. I still don't fully agree with that. Give me your number one antagonist. Come on. Is he gonna say Future Rogue is his favorite? I love Grand Magic Games, but please don't tell me his favorite antagonist is Future Rogue. I do love Grand Magic Games. It's fantastic. I do love the Grand Magic Games. I fucking loved it. The only tournament arc I'd rank above Grand Magic Games is Battle City. Well, yeah, it wasn't supposed to at the start. It was them wanting to climb back to the top. They were making up for the 7 years of humiliation that the guild had. Ugh.
Here's why you're all wrong about the Grand Magic game. It encapsulates the core of Fairy Tail very damn well. Right after 7 years, time who's in the Bob, the reputation of the Fairy Tail Guild is in absolute shambles. All the strongest members just disappear for 7 years and somehow manage to come back. The Grand Magic Games is this yearly tournament that all the guilds participate in, and they get
yeah, it was brought up to take place of after Fairy Tail like pretty much was mostly disappeared and kind of like brought into like a bad state at a number one spot. I did actually really like the second origin because it made it so a lot of the characters weren't aware of like how strong they were, so they territory magic. No, Minerva's is territory. It's like manipulation of a zone. I do love Memory Make. What was I saying? Lost my spot. Anyway, whatever. Sort of. Godslayers are like the red-headed stepchildren of Fairy Tail. Skipped full report. Did he mention? I completely missed it. Did he mention Yukino? So Yukino definitely had her own keys, and she was a newer member, similar to like how Erza, or similar to how Lucy was. I mean.
We feel like we are a part of the fairy tale. Our guild and our family was berated for 7 years. We traveled along with the members that got the 7 years.
Yeah, they got the getting the #1 spot and the money was part of the Grand Magic Games, but really they were making up for the 7 years of humiliation that their guild suffered. This was a weird thing that they did extra in the anime. I don't know, it was weird for them to do. It lasted too long too, that weird extra like fan service part. That part I didn't really like just because I felt like it kind of deterred a little bit from what was going on. But I guess they had to add a little bit extra time because that fight was, for the most part, Jenny and Mira just kind of being models, and then at the end, Mira just blitzing her because Jenny's not really a fighter. The way I actually did this part was really interesting in the anime, because Erza was like mixing her swords and armor sets, but she doesn't really do that until recently. Like, at least with Yodo Benizakura, at least. Sorry. Like, now she can, because it takes a lot of magic to use. Yeah, they had to flex on him. Oh, Raventail. Raventail the disappointment. Wait, what? I mean, that wasn't really because he can. Natsu was pissed because Sabretooth was really going against, like, Natsu's visions and, like, ideals about, like, how the guild should be. Like, it's really interesting. Like, early in the series, even though Natsu cares about, like, members of the guild, he seems more like he cared about the idea of the guild as a whole. And he has a very strong idea of how the guild should be, because the guild was the first home that he really came to after, Igneel just up and vanished. And so it was a place that he could really, that he was able to recover and find, like, comfort and happiness in. So he's got, and I know a lot of characters, like, have their own, like, joys from joining the guild. But Natsu really has this very strong idea of the guild itself. And that's one of the reasons, like, he's always pissed at, like, when he sees people treat members of their own guild very poorly. Like, you can, like, there could be two guys that just kind of know each other and beat each other up. But if they're in the same guild, Natsu will be pissed. Like, they could be, like, just friends, just hanging out, fight each other or something. And he'll probably be bothered by it, but it's the idea of same guild that really will just kind of completely fire him up in order to, lay down the hurt. And the way that Yukino was humiliated in front of her guild and treated so poorly and kicked out after she worked so hard to get to the guild, and Natsu was not having that. He was not having the way that they treated her at all. It's a very interesting kind of way that Natsu views guilds and how he thinks they should be, because of, in his mind, what the guild represents. It was represented to him. I do love the Grand Magic Games. It's a really good. Like I said, the only tournament arc I like more is Battle City. No, it was exciting. It was more about like, the rise back for them, and how they can get more in, like, a happy time, and bringing them back to the top, being hyped for them after the complete defeat at Acnologia. What? Flesh-eating Bakugo? It's a really weird way to describe it. Yeah, Kyoka Beast. Erza's savage. The thing about that part I always found is, like, really fair that Erza did such a ridiculous feat is she still failed. Like, she didn't prevent Face from going off, and Kyoka got Face to go off, so what she wanted happened. Who's your favorite? I want to see some favorite antagonists, right? Get your favorite antagonist, man. That's better not be feature rogue. Yeah, it's definitely the most. It's absolutely the most fairy tale spirited one. I mean, did Natsu not witness? Did Natsu not witness future Lucy get stabbed and die in front of him? That was when he started being way more defensive to Lucy, and he started to protect her more in danger because he didn't want, after witnessing, even though it wasn't the exact version of her, it was like in his mind seeing her die, like completely fucked him up. Just gonna scroll over because I want to know how much time is left. I think it's like 12 minutes or something. Yeah, something like that. 14 minutes or something. No way. I thought their interactions were great at the start, but I will admit, I think for me personally, where the series really kind of like started to really flourish and pick up heavily, like it got. I think it started to get really good with Galuna Island, just because Gray's backstory. Like you got a really like deep and dark backstory pretty early on. But I think personally, where the series really starts to kind of just go on like a heavy train, nonstop. Was when we got to Phantom Lord. I think that Phantom Lord was like the first really defining arc of the series. I love that arc. Anyway, it's great. Yeah, they're repping the crew. I mean, I've read and watched it multiple times. Poor Flair getting beat up by Laxus. I wonder what she's doing right now. Did I miss who his favorite villain was? I don't think so. He talked about Zeref. No, that's part of the issue with that is because you, from what I understand, it's not a shot at you. From what I understand, I don't think he's ever gonna watch this video, but at least for him, he watches the anime. I don't know if he's watched like the movies or the spin-offs. Because there's already like a lot of the like building of the story, like it's directly what takes place around like the guild, like and the members. That's why I think a lot of it is more of like their journey through the story and like their experiences rather than you reading the story. It's more of like watching these characters go through it. And so you don't get a lot of like just random place. Let's kind of like build this environment and stuff. What's going on over here and stuff. There's still a pretty good amount of world building in the base one. I will admit, you like I think a lot of Fairy Tail's world building and a lot of like larger scale stuff happens in like the movies and the spin-offs and whatnot. I think the 100 Years Quest has done a really great job of that as well, like just showing like Giltina and stuff. I will say I can understand like where he would miss it, because if he's an anime only, he wouldn't know about, like, maybe he's watched the movies, but he wouldn't know about stuff like a lot of the spin-offs, and something like 100 Years Quest. So just wanted to interrupt there on that point. Still don't even know the continent that Gray's from is called. One day. No way. I love Alvarez. The only part about Alvarez that I would alter, like besides just making fights longer, is I would have changed like the ending for. I would have changed the fight entirely for August. Like the other characters just make their fights longer. August I would have changed entirely. She is goat, man. Look at that fucking chin. Look at that, like, I almost said foreshadow. That chin set. That stubble. Dude's awesome. like I said, it depends on the. You got to read the manga. Like One Piece of emphasizes a lot on its world building. I gotta give it credit for that. You gotta read Toriko, man. I think Toriko has better world building than One Piece, personally. Yeah, the stories are structured differently. Uh, that is one of the things in My Hero that I've always like wished. I wish we saw more heroes from other countries and stuff. I'm hoping after this arc, with like if things go really dark, there'll have to be like some kind of Justice League Avengers style of like we need to bring the best heroes of every single country together to form like a super squad in order to deal with like what's going on. I mean, yeah, we barely see anything in Alvarez. We get a lot of Giltina, but like Alvarez, there's like very little we still know about like them. I wish we'd get like a Brandish spinoff or really anybody just to see what's it like over there more like spread. Well, Demaria. Altair wasn't. Well, Altair's old lady was in there. I mean, Altair was the one helping. Altair was the one helping them defeat Demaria. Come on. And like Jalal had clearly had the thing like helping fight against Acnologia, and Merity is the one that used sense like her Megulti sense to link people in order to have a continent-wide unison raid fairy sphere in order to lock Acnologia in place on the boat. I just want to know if he mentioned his favorite. Like, I don't think I've missed his favorite antagonist. There we go. Wait, I thought. Oh, maybe he'll count of like Laxus when he was an antagonist. So maybe that. Laxus is a goddamn Chad though. Oh, okay, understandable. I don't know about spoiled. I think more of just like some big jacked like asshole. Like he was just some super powerful jerk. I don't know about spoiled. We still don't even really know why Ivan got kicked out. Ivan is such like a weird like we don't really need to know about him crew. Look at that Chad punch off. Well, no, that definitely not really in terms of that. A lot of Laxus's stuff was more about him as an individual. Laxus had a huge, like complex of himself. What like just like a I don't want to say individuality complex. I think is the right term. But like he was always being compared to for being, or he was always being referred to as more as Makarov's grandson. Any of his accomplishments were in the eyes of so many people not because of what Laxus like achieved and like worked hard to do. It was because of course he was able to do that. He was he's Makarov's grandson after all, which to him, like the fact he was always like in so many people's eyes just living in Makarov's shadow, that he had this huge issue on himself that he wanted to become powerful in order to overcome that, and because of that he developed like this very aggressive belief on like how he would only want power. He didn't want the guild to be looked down on. He didn't like that silly kind of setup that they were in, and it was part of the reason why after he cast Fairy Law that he was like talking about how he'd finally surpassed his grandfather. It's because he was the reason he wanted so much power was so he could overcome him, so people would look at him for him and not look at him for being Makarov's grandson. So I want to put that. Like, the stuff with Ivan, like, obviously he was upset that Ivan got excommunicated from the guild, but it was never really like the big factor behind what Laxus was doing. It was more about him. And even like one of the parts that's both in the manga and in the anime that's forever like embedded into my head because it was such a powerful scene is after he I think it was like right after he cast Fairy Law, and Levy's trying to tell him like he can try and lie to himself, but he can't lie to his magic. And because of that, you know, his Fairy Law wouldn't hurt the members of the guild, and he was like, you know, having doubts in himself, and he's just like thinking, you know, I am Laxus, I am me, I am not Makarov's grandson, I am me. And he was so heavily like pushing in this whole like complex of who he was that that it kind of like ate away at him, and that's really kind of just where he like what just consumed him is this oh, my cats are doing stuff. Hey, I'm finishing up a video. I'm just knocking shit over right now. Hey, quit it. They're always messing with stuff like right near the end when I'm doing shit. But this Laxus in general, like how much of his story at that point really just reflected on him wanting to be his own person is really what drove him to try and have a hostile takeover of the guild. Anyway. I do really like the Thunder Palace. That was a really good short arc. It's weird how like extra short it is in the anime because it's only like 25 or 26 chapters of the manga, so it's only like 10 episodes in the anime. Yep, drops Fairy Law on him. Doesn't hurt anybody because in his heart he didn't actually see any of them. It was more of like it was more about how like he wanted to believe that in order for him to enter his own, like the guild to enter into his own age. Laxus got some cool ass tattoos too. Natsu needs to get some tattoos again. Like, I know his the one from Igno was temporary, but man, that was awesome.
That is when he becomes, in his heart, a member of Fairy Tail. That is when he realizes where his home is as he's kicked out. There was a sign.
Yeah, when you really like learn how much like you care and appreciate something when it's taken away from you. It's hard stuff for him. Laxus has a great journey. Oh, this is such a heartbreaking scene, man. No, mate. Definitely not cringy, man. I loved that. That was so touching. Just to know, even while he's gone, they still all are going to be thinking about him and going to be looking his way. Getting nostalgic feels, man. Look at that guy. Oh. And then he comes back to fucking flex on Hades just to show up. It was fucking awesome. That scene, I remember when that chapter dropped, just Laxus appearing, man. And that spread was great too. And just watching him getting ready to step up on the previous generation. Well, Generation 2. He's kind of like Generation 3. Well, yeah, previous generation. Gonna peer over to see the time again. Oh man, I forgot how like well that looks in the anime when they bring the colors out there. There he is, Moto Ryan Ryu. Look at that. That was also such a crazy part too. Look at Ivan. Best arc, Tartarus arc.
Being this ridiculously poisonous demon spell thingo that kills anyone that breathes them in. Well, it doesn't exactly kill them. It just, yeah, you know, it's not so bad. It puts them in excruciating pain until they die out of pain.
Oh no, it does kill them. It's toxic. That this isn't something that comment on. The way that that work is it will break down the ether nano. It's essentially diluting it and just rotting it. So any of the magic inside of their bodies as a wizard is like slowly being corrupted, and as talked about, magic deficiency can kill them. So it was a huge risk for Laxus to do, and it was really touching also when, but it's sad at the same time just thinking about it of when Freed was asking if they saved the town, and they're like, yeah, you guys saved everybody, and then it like goes back to it, and it's like, man, there's over 100 dead people here. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, this is crazy. It's like, man, rough stuff. Luckily, Laxus like dragon slaying body, so he was able to kind of like take it in. Hell yeah. Well, not all of it. A lot of it. It was only a year. It wasn't years. I do love Laxus. Laxus is awesome.
That's why Laxus is my favorite character. This is why Fairy Tail is an amazing anime. It's not a bad anime that
I'm just gonna leave it over, just as the rest of it for the time, so I don't miss the time. Well, nothing's perfect. Nothing's perfect.
Everything I've said until this point is
Oh, look at Ignil.
obviously all art is subjective and
Well, it's not gonna keep up. I'll just push it over then.
you like and hate it if you don't like. But objectively, I'm trying to make a case for why Fairy Tail isn't only not as bad as people say,
That's great.
good in many degrees that other
I love it.
reach. Now I want to talk
My favorite.
on a slightly more personal level. Not necessarily personal as in I was attacked by enemy ninja, so I threw a Fairy Tail Blu-ray DVD disc thingo at them and it allowed me to escape. Fairy Tail is forever my favorite anime. Not exactly what I mean by personal. I mean, this is a personal appreciation I have for Fairy Tail, and I think it affects many people in a very
Okay.
which is why it's following.
Oh man, it's in the background, that scene. Goddamn, that last scene. Just remembering Natsu at that point hurt.
I myself at that point was very lost. I did not know who I was. I did not know what I was planning on doing, and I was kind of just going through the motions, wearing whatever mask I needed mentally to fit into any situation at all. I had no per se passion for anything, and I didn't feel like I was accomplishing anything. Now, I don't want to say it's thanks to Fairy Tail that I managed to overcome that challenge, because, well, it's not. Fairy Tail just happened to be with me at that time, and
I would like to say, just because I was wondering whether or not I would do, I would continue towards his personal stuff, like his experience. But I think it's important that I hear it out, because I personally, one of the things I do really like about the series are the themes and the tones, because I see, like, when you really think about, like, aspects about, like, going through life, like, I do agree with Natsu, like, the struggles are part of it, hard parts are part of it. But I also really, when you think about, like, aspects of, like, the journey through life, I think one of the largest traits is who you journey with, and the getting friends and people along the way to make it better, to be part of, to be like the big aspect of life, to be the experience is really important. So I just wanted to comment that, because that's part of what I wanted to say, but I do want to hear him out. I think it's important as well onto this, because then I can finish up and comment on what parts that he has in regards to that. I'm actually doing well. I was worried this video is going to be 3 hours. It's actually not even going to be twice as long, so that's good.
being that I've been watching Fairy Tail for like a goddamn decade, I've been living with this.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's what, 2020?
Where I was not happy with myself and had to wear this metaphorical mask all the way to where I am now. I know YouTubers complain about not being in a healthy mind state, but I am very grateful for the progress I've seen myself make over the last bunch of years. And just
Hey, it's gotta be honest with yourself.
acclimating with each other.
Took me a while too.
Bonds grow stronger and stronger as they learn to become more of who they are, where they can follow their own dreams and they can have whatever quirky nature creature they want with no repercussions from the other members of their family. That's been very similar to my experience as well. If you've seen my channel, you know I'm a relatively quirky dude. I'm not the most, let's just say, normal individual.
Where are his legs?
The people that actually like fairy tale don't make videos defending fairy tale because it's like taboo almost.
Yeah, they're clout chasers. They want clicks. They go on for the trend.
No one else on YouTube did. I know I'm gonna get.
I've been doing it.
Honestly,
Been doing it.
this is my perspective of something that means a hell of a lot to me. And it's not just me. There are many people that connect to fairy tale. There are many people that live in a society where they too have to wear a mask wherever they go. Where they too want to be free to dream. Where they too want to actually be themselves instead of try and emulate something they're not for the sake of those watching. Everyone judges. Everyone judges to the point that if you made a bad joke 10 years ago on Twitter, that tweet can be pulled up in front of you now and you could lose your job because of it. We live in an
Oh yeah, the cancel culture.
wearing masks.
Ugh.
Habituated way to survive, and it is not healthy. But in this wonderful guild of fairy tale, a place where everyone's quirky natures are completely out and about, where anyone can dream, where anyone can become what they want to become, and they have people around them that care about them for who they are, not who they're trying to make believe they are. A guild that welcomes anyone as long as you have the right shaped heart and the ability to dream. The ideal of what fairy tale is, and the beauty of this guild is so welcoming to so many people. People who never had to undergo mental ups and downs, I believe, are the majority of the people that don't like fairy tale. Fairy tale is
Yeah, I don't know how some people could. I don't know how some people could like go through like the whole story without seeing anything that some of these struggles and obstacles that the characters overcome, and some of the themes and aspects about the series that deeply root into these character stories and not related something to themselves. I don't know. I can't imagine going through like a series so long and not finding anything that kind of speaks to you. Not even from the part that maybe like relates to your past, but even not being able to kind of understand some of these characters. I don't know. That's weird to me. I couldn't imagine somebody like putting that much time in a series and then not having any form of feelings like that towards him. I don't know. There are some people like that, and we don't like to talk to them.
for people who society would deem rejects if they would know who they truly are. And this is the safe haven for all of them. The Fairy Tale Guild, the protagonist of the
Almost over.
is one of the few places that really feels like home. So with that said, and with Fairy Tale having just ended in the anime, thank you so much for your many
I wonder if they do a 100 Years quest, if he's going to do a video on it.
on to new horizons for both Fairy Tale and for every single Fairy Tale fan and viewer. This video wasn't meant to discuss every positive theme or detail.
I mean, it's not over. We got 100 Years quest, man. If only you read the manga.
Fairy Tale is great. So even though the Fairy Tale anime did end, and even though I'm approaching the end of my tribute to my happy years spent with Fairy Tale, it's on to new horizons with new adventures in an unknown future. But you
Still going.
embrace that quirky.
Maybe he's not a manga guy.
Be yourself and not just live a masked life. It's important to have dreams, and it's important to try and reach.
That'd be weird only reading, like, if you know there's a continuation of the series, but not touching it. Anyway, okay. Sweet stuff. Just in a conclusion, I thought overall, I thought it was pretty good. Some of the aspects, like, that I talked about, like, certain traits and like, character stories, I think he might have missed. But I think overall, like, he made a lot of good points. I don't agree... I don't agree on, like, any of his power level, like, power scaling setup ones. I think he completely missed a lot of those. But, I mean, this isn't a power level video, so, overlook it. But for the... Well, I didn't overlook it. I commented. You know what I mean. I think he did a pretty well job in regards to highlighting the good traits of the series and aspects of the characters and ways of the stories and how they're all going through them, and every single part that that these characters have from their stories that ends up relating or evolving in experiences through these other ones. Like the fact that when Gray thought he lost Juvia, just that experience in the Alvarez arc is what caused him now to have this, I need to get stronger, I need to be able to protect Juvia if I'm ever going to actually be with her. Like he's fully admitted his feelings exist for her, but now because of that whole event where he wasn't able to protect her against Involvet, he doesn't want to feel that again. He doesn't want to. He doesn't think that he would deserve her if he can't prevent that from happening again. Stuff like that. It's always been done really well in the series, and it's weird to me when people overlook aspects like that. But then they'll like focus on, can't believe that Shanks and Guildarts look similar, huh? Am I right? But then like that's all that it really is. It's like, yeah, they're both missing an arm, except one of them's got prosthetics. He's also missing a leg. Completely different power system. Completely different roles in the story. But whatever. Anyway, yeah, solid video. Definitely. I actually enjoyed it. Only some parts bugged me, but like I said, it wasn't as vital. I still think overall he did a pretty good job on it. But yeah, that's all. I was pretty happy that it wasn't like Feature Rogue when he was talking about the Grand Magic Games be his favorite arc. I was like, please don't let his favorite villain be Feature Rogue. Please don't do it. It'll surprise me, but I would be wanting to hear what his reasoning is, but at the same time, like I can't imagine someone picking Feature Rogue over Zeref, Acnologia, or Mard Gear. I mean, and then we got guys rolling in now with like Igni and Alderaan that are already kind of more interesting than Feature Rogue. He wasn't a bad guy, but I don't think he was nearly as compelling as a lot of the villains. But anyway, look at Hades, dude is a badass. Anyway, yeah. So other than that, though, comment below. I'm gonna wrap this up before it's the 2-hour mark. And I hope that my commentary and my reaction going through this was entertaining, maybe gave some insight from both a like a much larger YouTuber giving his opinions of something that you obviously cared about, and me that even though I'm a much smaller YouTuber, I don't mean it in an insulting way. I think I've put in a lot more time than most when it comes to the series, so a much more broad view on somebody who was willing to take the risk and do a big video and talking about what exactly the series excels at and why they like it so much. But yeah, other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video, friend the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed. I thank you all for listening. Bye.